Good evening. Good evening. We will now have the posting of the colors by Lieutenant Colonel Sherry K. Oler, Professor of Military Science, Division of Military Science, University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff.
Permission to post the colors.
Post the colors.
Order. Arm. Post. Freeze it. Arms. Order. Arms. Right. Space. Forward. Mark. Colors down.
Ladies and gentlemen, I propose a toast to the President of the United States.
Mr. Toastmaster, I propose a toast to the United States Army Cadet Command.
Madam Toastmaster, I propose a toast to the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, ROTC. Madam Toastmaster, I propose a toast to our guests.
Madam Toastmaster, I propose a toast to our fallen alumni.
Ladies and gentlemen, I propose a toast to our Keynote Speaker. Here.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
You may now take your seats. We will now have the invocation by Colonel Kenneth Kemp, class of 1983.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. I need to make sure you know I'm class of 84, a little bit behind the 83 crowd. Isn't this a wonderful occasion? Let's pray together. You want to get him seated before I pray? Okay, we'll wait. We'll wait. You guys are too stiff for me. You just loosen up a little bit. I know this is military. You need to be staunch, strapped. But it's also a time of reunion. So let's pray together. God, we are so thankful for this time that allows us to come together and rekindle old friendships, old acquaintances, to renew remembrances of the past. We're thankful for the 50 years of the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff ROTC cadet program. We're thankful that we have been allowed to participate in the great teaching, the great mentorship, the great leadership that has occurred as a result. Now we pray that as we gather here today, all that we do will be pleasing in your sight. Bless these who have retired, these who remain on active duty, these who are yet to enter the realm of active service in the United States military, even those who have served and now rest with you. We thank you. All of these blessings we ask with respect to all faiths in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. My apologies, Reverend Dr. Kemp.
That's okay.
All I did was read it. But I remember him as a smart guy, so I figured he got out early. Ladies and gentlemen, could I ask you to stand for me, please? Please stand for me. Okay. Could you take one step to the right and then one step to the left? Thank you for being obedient. Please have a seat. I did that because some of you may have occasion to talk about this event, and you may remember that Thomas Vaughn was up here, and I would like for you to tell them the truth. I would like for you to tell them that I had everybody on their feet and I moved them.
Well, that's good.
For now, we will have the welcome and the occasion from Colonel Jennifer Wesley, class of 1989.
Thank you. So, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So, good evening, distinguished guests, my fellow UAPB AM&N alumni, fellow officers, family, and friends. Welcome home, first of all. It is an absolute honor to stand before you this evening and welcome you to our 50th anniversary of the UAPB ROTC Golden Line Battalion. The last 3 days have been filled with fellowship, camaraderie, mentorship, and last but not least, good food. So I'm so glad I took my PT test last week. To Chancellor Alexander, did he make it?
Yes, he's in the door.
To Chancellor Alexander, sir, thank you for joining us this evening and on yesterday. We appreciate the support you continue to give and provide to our ROTC program. To Lieutenant General Piggee, sir, thank you for being here this evening. I, as one of your senior staff officers, personally know how busy you are and the sacrifices you have made in order to be here tonight. It truly reflects your dedication to not only the Golden Line Battalion, but to your commitment to leadership excellence when it comes to teaching, coaching, and mentoring the future of our Army. I'm truly honored to be a part of your leadership team at the Pentagon, sir. Thank you for always leading by example. And to our fellow officers and family members, thank you for joining us tonight as well. We know some of you have traveled great distances as well to be with us tonight, and we truly appreciate your support. Tonight, we celebrate 50 years of making a difference, a half a century of providing leadership excellence to our nation. That is truly worth celebrating, so please give yourselves a round of applause. So during my trip here, I was reading some of the history of our great university and battalion. And during my reading, I could not help but be drawn to the letter that Lieutenant General Lincoln sent to Lieutenant Colonel Batiste as he was preparing to stand up the Golden Line Battalion. And if you brought your brochure souvenir books with you, it's on page 18. And the last paragraph that I read really stood out to me, which I think accurately reflects why we are here this evening. So, and Lieutenant General Lincoln writes, he said, "I am somewhat envious of the position which you enjoy of creating a program where none existed before. The discussions which I had with you and your college officials assure me that you will have a highly successful ROTC program which will accomplish as much for Arkansas AM&N as it will for the Army." And his words have proved to be true because it was the hard work, dedication, and commitment that you all provided to this program, the Army and the country, that paved the way for many others to follow. The example that you all set back in 1968 is why we are celebrating here tonight, 50 years later. So before I take my seat, I would like to acknowledge Colonel Retired Scott. Sir, are you here?
Yes.
Would you please stand, sir? And I would also like to acknowledge Miss Betty Willingham. Ma'am, would you please stand? And remain standing. So Colonel Retired Scott, when we stood up the program in 1968, was Captain Scott.
Yes.
And Miss Betty Willingham was the first administrative assistant to Lieutenant Colonel Batiste and the ROTC staff. So collectively, we assembled here would like to say thank you for investing in us. Let's give them a round of applause. I would also like to recognize the class of 1970. As most of you know, there were 24 students selected in 1967 to be trained as advanced corps cadets and performed as upperclassmen in the ROTC program. If you were a part of the original 24, would you please stand so that we can recognize and honor you? If you were part of the original 24, please stand. Thank you very much. I am standing here today because of you. Thank you very much. As we continue to celebrate tonight, let us not forget about our battle buddies who could not be here this evening and those who are no longer with us. In closing, I would like to share a few words from a poem written by Bonnie Murr, a couple of sentences, and it says, "Love your life and what you have been given. It is not accidental. Search for your purpose and do it as best as you can. Recognize the special people you've been blessed to know," and that's all of you here tonight. Live for today and enjoy the moment. So thank you. Have a great evening. Enjoy your dinner, and Army strong.
Thank you, Colonel Wesley. I would like to greet you also. My name is Grover L. Gibson from Fordyce, Arkansas. So as a member of the first commission class under the program. We have, our program rather, is dedicated to Lieutenant Colonel Batiste. Colonel Batiste is not in, he's not quite well, but he's still up and going and able to talk and do all those other things. And we have a video we would like to show you. The Lord Wilson took charge and coordinated with his family and got a team through his daughter to make a recording. And we have a 21-minute video, and you'll see it on the screen. And so as you prepare and eat your meal, would you please pay attention and watch, if you will, the video from Colonel Batiste. You know, he was our mentor, especially for the class of 1970, and we owe a great debt of gratitude to Lieutenant Colonel Batiste. I have, over the years, had an opportunity to visit with him, several of us, in particular, James Bonsley, Colonel retired also, and he calls us his sons, and so there was no greater honor than that, and so if you would direct your attention to that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
General MacArthur said that old soldiers never die, they just smell that way. As I stumble along the way, I fall into that category of old soldiers, since within a month I'll be 87, so you have to forgive me for any errors that I make in this interview. I am dedicating this interview to my staff, very wonderful and capable staff, especially to my first class of commissioned officers. I dedicate it to the current cadets and the future cadets. The step and the decision that you make regarding the program is vitally important to you, and you should, and I do recommend that you continue. The ROTC, All Military Science Program, was by law. Every land-grant college must have a military training program. However, for most Black land-grant institutions, they had to fight to get the program. My case was the same. At South Carolina State College, we did not get the program until 1947, which the president had to beg the politicians to comply with the law. The same thing happened with President Davis of, at the time, Arkansas A&M, currently the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. When we arrived, and I reported to the president, to President Davis, there was actually no space for the accommodations that I needed for the program. So we toured the campus, and I came upon an old gymnasium that had been vacated and left on its own for many years. This old gymnasium was built in 1930 under WPA project. I looked at this building and was somewhat frightened by what I saw. I met with Governor Rockefeller and explained the situation, that I had to have a facility that would accommodate over 5,000 weapons that would be brought in support of the ROTC program. And again, to the best of my recollection, he said, do you have a facility that could possibly be rehabilitated? And I told him yes, that this 1930 building was sturdy, it did not leak, and I think that I could make this old gymnasium usable for my program. And he says, well, I will support what you need financially. And again, as I remember, he wrote a check for $50,000 from his personal account as a starting point. President Davis also came to the rescue by making his building and ground staff available on a full-time basis to do the modifications and the update of the structure, in which they did an outstanding job. The program was officially established in first semester of 1967, but voluntarily established much earlier. The other difficulty in starting a program is that you needed the support of other established military science programs at the different colleges. However, I received no support from any of the established units in the state of Arkansas. The institution that came to the rescue was that of Ohio State at Columbus, Ohio. They continued to provide assistance and support with lesson plans and many other essential items to get the program started. I remember asking my cadets for volunteers to give blood. Innocent request. And I think I had over 500 cadets who volunteered to give blood, only to realize later, when some of the cadets came forth, the advanced cadets who came forth and said they did not volunteer to give blood because the blood was still being segregated and tagged so that no whites could ever receive black blood. And I met with the head of the Red Cross and said that they would not be welcome on campus anymore unless that issue was resolved favorably. And it was. My children came home from school, and my son was upset about something. And I said, well, what is it, Toby? And he says, well, Dad, there's the word nigger or other demeaning words in the history book, which the Arkansas history book, which was mandatory. And I said, oh, Toby, you gotta be kidding. And he just said, no, Daddy, here's the book, look, just turn a page. And I turned the page. And the first thing I saw was the Arkansas Traveler, who was a white minister who rode his mule called Lightning, going around Arkansas preaching the gospel. And he would always say to Lightning, Lightning, you get more sense than all the niggers on the farm. It was the greatest challenge of my military career. But at the same time, I am deeply, deeply proud of the cadets, and especially at first class. I'm deeply proud of the staff that I had. They had to be the best. I had an integrated staff of white and black officers, white and black non-commissioned officers, and I didn't have time to call regular staff meetings to meet with them. but they just knew so much depended on the first class at least being prepared. And so I feel like I've adopted them because I lost my son. And they are like my son to me. They keep in touch, and the wonderful surprise I had was when two of them had retired, made a visit to me. One was a colonel, the other was a lieutenant colonel, retired, both top-level jobs in industry and civil service. And it's the same route that I followed by going from military to civilian life. And I just love those guys. I really do. And when one of them called me and says, "Colonel, we have our first general," I was in no position health-wise at that time, although I was invited to come to his promotion party in Korea. That would have been the crowning glory of my military career had I been able to physically attend that promotion party 40 years after the establishment of the program. I am deeply proud of that particular first class. And if I remember correctly, my Latin from high school, Veni, Vidi, Piggee. They came, they saw, and they conquered. Because at first class, some of them made full colonel. 40 years later, a general came forth from that program, the first general to make that rank as a result of the program, but it did take 40 years. The commanding general of 4th Army, which was at Fort Sam Houston, Texas, for some reason came to visit my unit. And this is something he'd never done in Arkansas before. And I wanted my cadets to have maximum exposure. So they briefed him. For the first time since my retirement in 1972, I received recognition from the I can't remember the organization, but they sent me a flag, a plaque honoring my military service. But it was the first time it happened in 46, retired in 72. But that will give you some idea how long it took here in Georgia to be recognized. There would be no better choice that you could make rather than to be commissioned in the Army and be able to retire around 40 or 41 or 2 years of age. After 20 years of service, and be assured that you will be able to find a job without difficulty because of your background and the discipline and the exposure that you've had. I particularly want to thank my former staff, because they are the ones who deserve the credit for the jobs they did in making our cadets, first cadets, successful. And I say to the first cadets that were commissioned at University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff, I'm forever proud of you and will always be. Thank you so much.
We are honored to have a veteran of Vietnam from 1968 to 1970, Mr. Charles Woods, on bass guitar.
Lead guitar.
Lead guitar, I'm sorry. He said he learned those numbers in Vietnam. You never know, you never know. We're also honored to have tonight with us the president of the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff National Alumni Association, Mr. Timothy Piggee. He's in the house, but he's in the back row. We're sorry. We have two former professors of military science, Mr. Leon Crumlin, retired professor of military science, and Mr. Bryant, Mr. William Bryant. I saw him earlier. Okay, he's out to get some liquid courage. And we have one other guest that I've known for a really long time, retired Major General Elder Gardner and Mrs. Gardner. Elder? Granger, I'm sorry, Granger. I've known him for a long time. I met him last night. All the way from West Memphis, Arkansas. Denver, Colorado. Where else? By way of West Memphis. Okay. Now, I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Betty Willingham. She's already been introduced, but I'll reintroduce her to give you a personal introduction of our guest speaker tonight, Lieutenant General Aundre F. Piggee. Ms. Willingham.
Good evening. It is my distinct pleasure to serve in this capacity this evening for such a special occasion. It was mine to have served as the first departmental secretary of the ROTC program, while Mrs. Phyllis Maxwell served as the first administrative assistant to the professor of military science, Lieutenant Colonel A.B. Batiste. I was a direct report to the then Major Albert R. Spalding, and believe me, he made sure, without a doubt, that I earned my pay. Sometimes I think he would forget that I was not military. So 50 years later, I am honored to stand here to introduce such a special person who will speak to us shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, in this life, one step won't take you very far. You've got to keep on walking. One word won't tell folks who you are. You've got to keep on talking. 1 inch won't give you much growth. You've got to keep on growing. One deed won't do it all. You've got to keep on doing. And moreover, one promotion won't graduate you from a cadet to a lieutenant general. You've got to keep on working and working toward the ranks to follow. So our speaker this evening is one who has kept on walking, kept on talking, kept on growing, kept on doing, and kept on working. And thus we gather here this evening with a sense of proudness in celebration of his success, and certainly to hear his message this evening. Presently, Lieutenant General Aundre F. Piggee serves at the Pentagon as the Army Deputy Chief of Staff for Logistics. I invite you to read the information printed in your program to learn more about his impeccable career journey. I read it with much interest, and I hope you will do the same. During his 36-plus years in the Army, he has done much and achieved much along the way. And yes, he has kept on working, and today he is a success story. Lieutenant General Piggee evidently felt as did President Nelson Mandela, who said, "Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today." To that end, he continued his educational journey, having commissioned into the United States Army in 1981 from our alma mater, the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, graduating as a distinguished military graduate with a Bachelor of Science in Biology. He subsequently earned 2 master's degrees and an honorary doctorate. Thereafter, continuing to educate himself in the military. And I might add that his awards and decorations are many. Now, let me talk just a moment about his early formative years. First of all, I boast of the fact that he is a native of Stamps, Arkansas. And of course, Stamps is in stone-throwing distance of my hometown of Stevens, close enough for me to call him homeboy. Our 2 high schools, however, were competitive in basketball, and I don't think we agree who the winners were, so I won't go into that. He attended Ellis High School in Stamps, where his father was the principal. I spoke with a couple of former Ellis High School teachers. Both of them spoke very positively about the student, Aundre, as they referred to him. They are not at all surprised at his success level. They described him as one who realized much earlier on that life's journey was before him and that the time of preparation started then. They, of course, were excited just remembering him as a student with such a sense of determination to reach higher heights. My contacts were Coach Leon Richard and Mrs. Jewel Jones. They send their blessings this evening. Neither of them taught him directly, but they were privy to have observed him during his high school days. Nevertheless, they color him their hero as well. And thus, I am honored to introduce our speaker for this 50th UAPB ROTC celebration, a son of Arkansas, an outstanding alum of UAPB, an Army hero, a friend to mankind, the husband of Mrs. Cassie Gideon Piggee from Killeen, Texas, and the father of Alexis. Again, one who kept on walking, talking, growing, doing, and working. And therefore, it is so pleasing to our hearts this evening to welcome him, a golden lion, back to our home, Lion Country. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our hero, a man of distinction, the United States Army Lieutenant General Aundre F. Piggee.
For 100 years, logisticians in the G4 have left a proud mark on our Army. In war and peace, we have supported 32 chiefs of staff. Our focus has always been the same, making sure soldiers are ready and have what they need to fight and win. Through it all, we've shown battles, campaigns, and wars primarily are won or lost because of logistics.
The G4 started on April 16, 1918, a year after the United States entered World War I. To meet unprecedented demand, Chief of Staff General Peyton March, with Congress's approval, set up this new logistics organization. It consolidated all supply operations, secured storage, transportation, and shipping to equip American forces. 7 months later, the Allies declared victory. Then, after a rough 2 decades that included a depression and the rise of global conflict, the United States entered World War II following the attack on Pearl Harbor. Many logisticians contributed to the master plan for the Normandy invasion.
Do you feel that the supply problem, I think you call it logistics, is the controlling factor in the whole Allied strategy of invasion?
The problem of victory is the problem of supply. Solve it and the battle's won.
Housed in the newly constructed Pentagon, they began the process of building the arsenal for democracy, as President Roosevelt explained.
The Allies had landed on the Normandy beaches nearly 2 million men, more than 2 million tons of supplies, and nearly 500,000 vehicles. Think of the war factories and the ships and the planes and the railroads and labor required to produce and deliver the right supplies to the right place at the right time.
Victory in the Pacific and European theaters was celebrated around the world, but the celebration was cut short as international relations once again froze over. The Cold War flashed hot when communist North Korea invaded South Korea. Our allies fought to sustain against a larger force, as General Douglas MacArthur describes.
We could hold in Korea by constant maneuver and at an approximate area where our supply line advantages were in balance with the supply line disadvantages of the enemy.
A decade later, logisticians faced a new test in the jungles of Vietnam. As an increased number of troops battled the communist forces, the logistics offensive took shape.
In 1967, 45,000 tons of ammunition, 60 million gallons of petroleum, 10 million food rations. This, of course, is in addition to the thousands of tons of general military cargo, including heavy weapons, vehicles, and equipment, which must be stored, maintained, distributed, and serviced.
By the early 1970s, the Army was slowly withdrawing from Vietnam, but deterring our adversaries was far from over. The next decade, the Army conducted the largest peacetime modernization program in our nation's history. Logisticians helped field new tanks and other technologies.
Why is that wall there? Why are they so afraid of freedom on this side of the wall? In fact, I may stuff the question in a bottle and throw it over the wall when I go there today.
After the wall fell, the G4 focused on Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm.
Not only did we move the troops out there, but we literally moved thousands and thousands of tons of fuel, of ammunition, of spare parts, of water, and of food out here into this area. It was an absolutely gigantic accomplishment, and I can't give credit enough to the logisticians and the transporters who were able to pull this off.
Then the battle shifted to combat terrorism following the September 11th attacks in New York, the Pentagon, and in Pennsylvania. The G4 was once again called upon to help plan for war.
Today we're talking about the mobilization of reserve and guard troops. They will serve in a number of essential roles. They will help our military with airlift and logistics.
For the last 17 years, the G4 has played a major role in the Afghanistan and Iraq wars and fighting terrorism all over the world. There has never been a time in American history when logisticians had to sustain soldiers at war for so long and do it so well. G4 staff worked on numerous challenges, deploying on average 150,000 soldiers every year and supplying hundreds of bases, many the size of small cities, with essential materiel. Our depots, arsenals, and ammunition plants surged to keep warfighters equipped.
There's an old saying, amateurs talk about tactics, professionals talk about logistics.
Through the years, logisticians have responded to numerous humanitarian missions, from the Berlin airlift to the earthquake in Haiti to the fight against the Ebola virus in Africa to our most recent natural disasters.
You have areas in Puerto Rico where we literally had to deliver food and supplies by helicopter. The job they've done has been incredible.
In its last 100 years, the G4 has been led by our nation's finest, starting with Major General George Washington Goethals, best known for building the Panama Canal, Major General Fox Connor, the mentor to General Eisenhower and many others, General Brehan Somervell, who led the efforts to build the Pentagon. In this century, Generals Charles Mahan, Chris Christensen, Mitch Stevenson, Ray Mason, and Gus Perna guided us in Iraq and Afghanistan. And we can celebrate our pioneers who broke barriers for all. Arthur Gregg, the Army's first African-American three-star general, and Ann Dunwoody, who went on to become the first female four-star general in the history of the United States Army.
Today, what was once a band of brothers has truly become a band of brothers and sisters.
Leaders are now taking steps to prepare for the next 100 years.
The sustainment challenges will be significant. Life will almost certainly be extremely austere. The ability of units to produce or purify their own water and locally manufacture their own spare parts with 3D printing may become a necessity. And if the lines of communication can be opened and resupply convoys, will likely be autonomous robots or remotely controlled convoys.
In the next 100 years, the G4 will be at the forefront of improving Army readiness and empowering our efforts of great people who have a passion for the warfighter and selfless service. I want to thank all former G4s before me, sergeants major, soldiers, and civilians. As we commemorate our centennial, let us continue the rich sustainment legacy that so many have laid before us. U.S. Army G4, 100 years strong, Army strong.
Well, truly, it's no place like home. And I really thank you all for welcoming me. And Jennifer, thank you for that wonderful surprise. And thank you all for coming out this evening as we celebrate what a wonderful legacy that you all started. And we've just started. We got 50 years down. We got at least another 50 years to go. First, I'd like to start by recognizing Chancellor Alexander, sir. We know how busy you are, but it speaks volume for you to be with us this evening and your continued support. We can't be successful without the university and your support and your leadership, and we thank you for everything that you continue to do for us. So I know General Granger had to leave. You know, when I met him when I was a senior colonel in the Pentagon, and I was always impressed and learned a lot from him, but he was always calm, he was always prepared, and he set an excellent example for me to follow. Little did I know years later that I would be a general officer serving in the Pentagon, and I have a newfound appreciation for what he did and the example that he set. And I know in his absence he had to take off, but he's been a great mentor and friend to me, and I really thank him for that. Miss Betty Willingham. Ma'am, I will tell you that I've been introduced, as you might expect, a number of times over the course of my career, and especially in the past 10 years as a general officer. But by far, that was the best introduction I've ever had. So in the military, all of you know, for those that excel and represent excellent in what they do, we have a challenge coin that we provide. So it would be an honor today for me to give you this small token of my appreciation for what you have done for this program, what you continue to do for us every day, and what you've done for me this evening. Thank you so very much. Now, what I did not tell you is that the next time we get together and you don't have that coin, the drinks are on you. Just so you know. Dr. Kemp, thank you for those inspiring words of inspiration. I really appreciate that, and they serve us well every day. To my friend, Darrell Porter, you haven't missed a lick from those years on the yard years ago. Thank you so much for that wonderful rendition of the national anthem. I don't remember you singing the national anthem when I was in school. Just kidding. Just kidding. To our honor guard, well done. I know how challenging that is, especially when you do it in front of a crowd, and then we gave you a tight venue, but you still did it to standard. Extremely well done, and you make us proud. Thank you so much. Just a couple others, and I apologize if I missed some, but to Grover Gibson and Mr. Thomas Vine and Deloyd Wilson and all the rest of you that really founded this organization some 10 years ago, you've done a magnificent job, and we can never fully repay you for what you do. To Colonel Jen Wesley, she stood up here, and I'm not sure if she was accurate. She told you she enjoyed working for me. Truth be known, I'm not so sure, but I am really proud to have her on my staff. And you can only imagine, having been a proud graduate of this institution and then have the second senior Army officer from UAPB working on your staff. I'm so proud of her every day. And our PMS, Colonel Sherry Oler, I think we did a great job in selecting you. Thank you for what you do. To all of the faculty and staff from our great institution that are here this afternoon, I really appreciate your support for this program. And last but not least, to all of these outstanding students that we have here, take it from this old guy from the class of 1981. The older you get, the more you appreciate UAPB. What a great influence this institution has had, not only for us, but all of those that have matriculated through these wonderful doors over the past 100 plus years. So I'm glad to help celebrate our golden anniversary, and I couldn't help but think, with all of the distinguished ladies and gentlemen here, any of you would do a much better job than me this evening, but I really appreciate the opportunity to stand before you and say just a few words. We had our business meeting this evening, which was interesting. And it reminded me of this elderly gentleman that had lost his hearing. And he went to the doctor, and the doctor outfitted him with these brand new high-tech hearing aids and tested him out and said, hey, hearing actually was pretty good, restored, and sent him home on his way. And a month later, he came in for his 30-day checkup and said, checked his ears out again, said, hey, your hearing is perfect. Your family got to be really excited that you can hear everything that they're saying. And he said, no, I didn't tell anybody. He said, all I do is I sit around and listen to the conversations, and I've changed my will 3 times. So we had an interesting meeting today, but hopefully we didn't have anybody changing their wills today. Now my task is relatively easy. All I want to do is reminisce a bit because so many people have made this university and our ROTC program a phenomenal success. Truth be told, back in 1977 when I rolled up on the yard, you know, if I had been judged by my ACT or SAT score, and Dr. Alexander, you may want to close your ears, I don't think I never would have gotten into this school. In fact, I was a conditional student my first year because my scores were marginal at best. Not because I was not a good student. I had good grades coming out of high school, but you know, I just didn't test well. So my scores were not that great. But this institution gave me a chance. You know, I'm a firm believer that we can overcome life's challenges as long as we apply ourselves. And UAPB gave me that opportunity where other schools would not. The ROTC program gave me an opportunity where other opportunities did not exist. So, you know, a couple of you have asked me over the last couple of days, what sparked my interest in ROTC and what made me want to join the Army? Well, I didn't want to join the Army and I didn't want to join ROTC. So, as you all know, that you had a mandatory class. You had to take either, for me, it was either physical education or ROTC. So I weighed my options, and for physical education, you had to go way over to Hazard Gym. You had to change clothes. You got sweaty. And the ROTC program was just right on the other side of the library there from Hunt Hall. So it was an easy choice. I said, okay, I'll do ROTC for a year. And I did my year, and I was done. And some bright PMS, we have a couple of PMSs here. One of the assistant PMSs had the bright idea to call my dad and said, hey, you know your son turned down a full scholarship? So you can kind of imagine how that conversation went. But my dad, I give him credit. You know, he never at once forced me to join the Army. I joined ROTC, but he's just a visionary. He's my role model. He's my mentor. And he said, son, he said, if you take that scholarship, I'll buy you a car. I said, where do I sign? But that wasn't made him. That was not made him smart. What made him smart was he bought me a car that was $400, and he made me pay half of it. And as I look back, I'm saying, man, I didn't get the good end of this deal. In some schools today, you know, you're just a number. But we are not numbers at UAPB. And that contributed to the success of the students who were in the ROTC program with me. It was a great, thriving program. As you know, we had lots of cadets then because the Army was larger. And we've gotten smaller over the years. And still to this very day, the vast majority of black officers coming into the military were coming in through historically black universities and colleges and being commissioned through these ROTC programs. When we went to advanced camp, we were prepared as any other cadet attending from much larger schools with much larger resources. So I remember in advanced camp, PMS, Lieutenant Colonel Mack, wanted all of us to be Recondo qualified. Do they still have a Recondo badge now? They do? So you guys, anybody over here Recondo qualified? Okay, there's a challenge, first challenge. So it was a special badge. You had to achieve it if you went through these leadership, physical fitness, land navigation, and swimming competitions. And James Park and I were talking about this last night, I think. You know, I couldn't swim. James couldn't swim either. So one of our faculty cadre, I think it was the Sergeant DeLine, I think I got that right, James, took about 4 or 5 of us out to a swimming pool here and taught us how to swim. Well, they didn't teach me very well because I almost drowned twice. So if you still remember you had to slide for life? Still have to slide for life? So I tried to stay on that rope until I hit that tower. I missed the tower. Still had to hit the water. They had to come pull me out of the water. And then the hang and drop. Everybody familiar with the hang and drop? You had to climb up, I don't know, about 50 feet. A little rope, climb out to the middle of the lake, and then you had to request permission. I think you had to say your name, your social security, and then say request permission to drop. I couldn't even remember my freaking name. So finally they just said drop. So they had taught me, you know, the thing what you got to do, you go down, you go down and you wait till and then you kind of stroke your arms and your feet, and then you would come back to the top. So, you know, I'm praying as I'm going down in the water. I go down and I do it one time. I do it again. And then the third time I said, this ain't working. So I make it back to the top, but I'm floundering. They throw me an inner tube. I couldn't grab the inner tube, and eventually they had to come in and get me again. But what they motivate me enough that I wanted to be successful representing our school. So even though it was challenging and I knew I couldn't swim, I did in fact earn my Recondo badge, and I think everybody that went with me earned their Recondo badge. We did not want to let our institution down. And in spite of the challenges that we had, we found a way to be successful. So when I got commissioned, I had to change a few things. You know, I had to change the way I walked. I had a little limp, as you all might imagine. I had to change the way I talked a little bit, you know, because we were all cool here walking around the yard trying to impress the young ladies. I had to change a little bit the way I dressed because it was a different culture in the military. But once again, the ROTC program here at Pine Bluff had prepared me. So it was not totally foreign to me when I showed up at Fort Carson as a brand new lieutenant. I had an expectation of what was expected. And the program had prepared me to be successful. And it was because of my UAPB experience and my ROTC role models, friends, and great instructors that I was able to fit in my first assignment. And that's a big transition. But Maya Angelou, my second homegirl, you're number one, but Maya Angelou from Stamps once said, she said that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. That's what's special about this school and this program. And that's what I remember most about our great ROTC program, how it made me feel. And a lot of people made me feel really proud. And some of them in the room today. Now, a lot are not here, but my dear friend, Brother Fulton Johnson here, you know, I followed him around, and not only, we grew up 19 miles from each other. We didn't even know each other, I think, until we met here at Pine Bluff. But he was a role model, not only as a cadet of what right looked like here in school, but we were assigned several times around the Army, and I could always depend on Fulton to come in and tell me, hey, I need to clean up something here, I need to do that better, or I could always ask him how to do something. A fellow logistician, just always great friend, and always made me feel good. George Aiken, some of you know very well. He was the battalion commander, if I remember right, back when we were cadets. Always set a great example. I had the great pleasure of having a former soldier in the program, my good friend James Parker. And James not only challenged us cadets, he would challenge the professors. I mean, he said, hey, look, you know, that's not quite right. And it was great for us to see that and understand it. But he was always tactful, professional, and he always taught us how to engage but still be professional. You know, my classmates, James Childs and Stan Williams are here. So I stay in touch with these brothers. They just made you feel good back then and to this very day. Those are the type of relationships. And then the professor of military science and the assistant professors of military science that we had, Lieutenant Colonel Mack. Those of you that knew him, I mean, he was stoic, he was stern, but he made us better. We were prepared for whatever the Army had to throw in front of us when we went into that world. And we owe a great deal of that to our PMS during the time that I was here was Lieutenant Colonel Mack. And then some of the assistant PMSs that I still stay in touch with in the D.C. area, General Brookins, Major Brookins, and Lieutenant Colonel Joe House. I still see them routinely. They're still counseling me and trying to help me along the way. And then Major Frank Jasper. Frank is that officer that thought enough to call my dad and say, hey, your son's turned down this scholarship. And there were many others, just to name a few. So in the Army, I've had 24 different assignments so far, you know, and I've never added up all the moves, and my staff saw, I think it was beneficial for me to remind me how long I've been around, and I made 24 moves. But in every assignment, I've tried to treat soldiers the same way all of you mentored me over these many years. I've tried to inspire those soldiers that I came in contact with. I've tried to motivate soldiers at every opportunity, and most importantly, to create opportunities for those that would follow me. And if I've succeeded, it's because of all of you. All of you have played an invaluable role. You know, we listened to our first PMS talk about the importance of the program and why it was important. It was also because of my parents. I came from a small town in Stamps. We had about 1,200 people on a good day, and we had the best basketball team. And Coach Richards was my coach. In those good old days, you know, you shoot free throws or make layups, and if you miss one, there was a little paddle. I'll stop there. We were motivated to. But my dad was a World War II veteran. He used his GI Bill to attend college, and graduated here when a lot of you, when Dr. Lawrence A. Davis Sr. was in charge, and he went on to become an educator, and I talked about being my role model. My mom worked her entire life, worked at the Lone Star Ammunition Plant, and I saw her again this morning. My brother brought up here, and we spent some time together, and for 36 years, I've been in the military now for 36 years. In about 2 weeks, I think it'll be 37. And for 36 years in a row, today, she's asked me the same question. When are you getting out of the Army? I am not exaggerating. This morning, she said, okay, now you told me you was going to be in that job for how long? So you got 2 more years to go, and what are you sticking around for? Well, so here's my answer, and it's always been the same. And I tell everybody this. I said, when you're having fun, you enjoy what you're doing, and you're making a difference, why stop doing that? And that's what my journey has been so far in the military. My parents instilled in me to have faith. I have a ton of examples of people said that I would never excel. I would never achieve. I was never good enough. But I think I did okay. And it was because my faith was bigger than my fears. And if I succeeded, it was because of my wife, Cassie, in my career. She sacrificed her career so many times for me so that I could have mine. I couldn't do what I do in my career with her. So by extension, we have a lot of our family members here today. And when I do ceremonies, I always tell those gathered that we that serve cannot be successful and could not do what we do without the support of our family. When we deploy in harm's way and willing to lay our lives on the line, we can focus on the mission because we have the unequal, undying, exceptional support of our family. So by thanking my wife, I'd like for all of you that have served in uniform join me in giving our family members a wonderful round of applause. You too, Phoenicia. Just kidding. Felicia's had me scared straight for a number of years. So what makes me feel good about our 50th anniversary are two things. First, we may be a small school, but our reach is truly global. More than 570 graduates have become officers in the Army through our program. Today, we have 32 officers serving in the active Army and many more serving in the reserves and the National Guard. They have deployed all over the world. We have served in Vietnam, in Iraq, and Afghanistan, and multiple times. So how many Vietnam veterans do we have here this evening? Wow. So what I've learned is that we have never given due honor and respect to our Vietnam veterans. And it's been my mission over the past year. Every time I see Vietnam veterans, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all you did. Thank you for enduring. We did not treat you fairly, but we give you the utmost respect. You never lost your professionalism. You always served this nation with great pride, and we can never thank you enough. So tonight, please, I'd ask you all to join me in thanking these wonderful, outstanding Vietnam veterans. And second, we alumni may be getting all the attention tonight, but the real winners from our program are our current students. To all of our cadets, I want you to know that we are here to support you. That's why this organization exists, to support you. You all have such an amazing journey ahead of you. And we are here, all of us here, collectively, want to make sure that the UAPB ROTC program is even better in the next 50 years. I think Lieutenant Colonel Alfonso Baptiste, our first professor of military science, will be very happy with the work of our current PMS, Sherry Oler, that she's doing right now. And he would be surprised how many things have changed in our society and both in our Army if he was here with us tonight. So how we fight in the next 5 to 25 to 50 years will change. How our enemies fight will change too. But we cannot be fighting yesterday's wars when we need talented graduates whose skill sets will be different from ours. If you look at my area of expertise, logistics, we cannot be stuck driving manned vehicles if we can deliver supplies with autonomous convoys. You heard John Milley, our Chief of Staff, say he wants us to make repair parts forward. Why should we be making parts 8,000 miles away from soldiers in a combat zone when we can 3D print them today? We want to make sure that we are not transporting water and fuel vintage 2018 style if warfighters can produce their own anywhere in the world, or even if vehicles that don't require fuel. We have to think out of the box. How we win in the future will not be the same today. We have to be innovative, but we still have to do all the basics right. It will be the next generation of our bright kids, I say kids, these young men and women coming out of UAPB with their STEM, agricultural, nursing, business, and education backgrounds that will lead the Army of the future. So as I close this evening, I want to give our cadets, our future, our young men and women here tonight, 4 keys to success that my parents taught me long ago. And as one of my mentors, General Colin Powell, would say, it worked for me. First, take the tough jobs and do them well. Don't look just to get by. If you want to be successful, take the tough jobs. That's when you'll be recognized. Take the tough jobs and then do them well. Number 2, always do what's right, even when nobody's looking. Always do the right things. Your character and your credibility are your most valuable asset. Number 3, and my father was always talking about this, always do your best. If a task is worth doing, it's worth doing 100%. If that's studying for a test, if it's your PT test, you know, I failed my first PT test. I shouldn't say that in public. But if it's worth doing, always give your best. And last, and most important, remember the golden rule. Always treat others with dignity and respect. Treat others the way that you want to be treated. So again, they worked for me. I know they'll work for you. So happy 50th birthday, Army Strong, Golden Lions, and thank you very much for this wonderful invitation. Thank you so much.
I appreciate the opportunity to have the microphone because I'd like to tell you about where I'm from. It's actually a place that should be very famous. Everybody should know about it because it is the home of one of the most famous sandwiches that we've ever experienced. It's true. Not many people know this. Well-kept secret. Marble, the home of a world-famous sandwich. The health department came out to inspect the cafeteria, and some were inside eating, and those that didn't have 25 cents were outside. So when the inspector came in, I don't know what her title was, we just called her the cafeteria lady, said, I need to see something. She says, what do you want to see? I want to see what he's eating. She said, well, you inspected the kitchen. She said, no, not inside. I want to see what he's eating. And she pointed to a window. And the lunchroom lady says, oh, po' boy out there? Ladies and gentlemen, it was a catfish sandwich, tomatoes and catfish on a hoe cake. Therein was the creation of the catfish po' boy. Not many people know that. Would James Parker, Sharon Alexander, D. Lloyd Wilson, Grover Gibson join me at the podium? Herein lies 5 of the most talented individuals that grace God's earth. Now, nine months ago, I didn't know that. I thought they were okay, but I had no idea how talented they were. They represent the planning committee for this 4-day event that we call the 50-year anniversary for Army ROTC at UAPB. Give them a round of applause. difficult to shop in Little Rock. This is a gift. This is a gift that we have for Mr. James Parker. Doesn't look too good from the outside, but I think he'll like what's inside. Mr. Parker was responsible for our souvenir book, our publications, the one that you see on the table, our internal communications that were distributed Thursday, Friday, the design of the shirts that we have. What else did he do? I can't remember. James Parker. Sharon Alexander used to scare me. We would have meetings, and she says, "No problem, I'll take care of that. No problem, I'll take care of that." Sent from my thingamajiggy. Anybody know what a thingamajiggy is? Sharon, thank you for your work. The next gift is for Mr. Calvin Farr. And I don't know how many of y'all were paying attention, but it slipped. I didn't call him Calvin Farr, I called him Creepy. Creepy and I have been together since 9th grade. 9th grade. Yeah, 9th grade. My hair was black and he had hair. We don't talk about it a lot, but it's good to have a friend. And I frequently tell my young adult children that if you don't have a friend, you need to be looking for one. I was blessed to find one when I was 11. I had older brothers, but they were 15 or more years older than me. And occasionally I'd get into a scuffle, but I was by myself. So even if I could whoop the little boy, I could run. And then one day, this guy, as I started to run, said, "Don't you go nowhere." And I looked at him, and this was the crazy man in town with the gun. D. Lloyd Wilson. I say, you know, I really don't want to have to deal with this guy, but I don't mind. I mean, I done been beat up before. It wasn't no big deal. But I got to deal with this dude. To my pleasant surprise, the guys that wanted to chase me and beat me saw him and turned. That was the last time in life that I had a fight. And he ain't going nowhere without me. We don't give the Lord enough credit because we would not be in here tonight were it not for a fire that he struck some 10 years ago when he said, "We are the strongest alumni unit at the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. Let's organize, let's invigorate the crowd, and let's make a difference." And he doesn't like the stage, he doesn't like the limelight. He'll send Grove up there for that. But he truly is the straw that stirs the drink. Now, I'm on the committee, but I had no idea how much work was involved till I got here Thursday. And I was looking around for the support staff. I have grown addicted to a support staff. We didn't have no support staff. They had decided to do it all themselves, and it was Thursday. I said, Jesus Christ, let's try to get through Friday. Maybe we can reschedule Saturday, and Sunday, some of us will be rested enough to do something else again. But these are amazing people. They're absolutely amazing. I get a little choked up when I talk about Grover. Grover's been the president of this organization most of my life. When Grover started this job, he was 6'3". We have whipped him into submission. But today, we had an election, and we have Charles Griffin as his Grover successor. Mr. Griffin, where are you? Mr. Griffin, you ain't gonna live long enough to outserve Grover. I'm not wishing you a short life. Longevity is great, but don't try to break his record. The last token of appreciation goes to General Piggee. Would you come up here, sir? In light of what's going on in Washington, I don't know if we can give you a gift, but we're going to loan this to you. It's okay to take it out the box, and you ain't gonna see us, so.
I got a good lawyer.
Thank you. And as I close, ladies and gentlemen, I was on the committee, but I don't have a material gift. The gift I have is trust. These fine men and women over the last 10 years have been trusting in me so much until sometimes it scares me. If I say, okay, I can take care of that, no problem. If I say I can do this, no problem. They have supported me unequivocally. I'm going to tell you how deep it runs. They said, for the special gifts, Vaughn, you pick them. So if they don't like those gifts, it's because they trusted too much. They trusted too much. So Grover is now President Emeritus of the Commission Officers Association. I am now no longer on the board. And if any of you have any complaints that you would like to register, the complaint box, where is it? We don't have no complaints.
Talk is cheap until Vaughn come around. The price goes up. No, seriously, as a committee, we were rocking and rolling along, and this event would not have been this exquisite or elaborate had it not been for the lawyer that joined the team. Every time he came on the call, he would say, what are we doing about Thursday? So we're going to caucus. No, if you go to caucus, you got to have whatever, and the price of this event went up. Then it came to Friday, and then the price goes up. It came to today, the price goes up. And I don't know how it's going to go up tomorrow for the memorial service, but I guarantee you it's going to cost us something. But no, we would be remiss if we didn't recognize his fine counsel. He was always there to give us sound advice, and he didn't have to be on the call as long as the rest of us did. He would come on in 5 minutes and change the whole course of it. We sometimes took for a whole day to do and stuff. So, if you saw some discombobulation, it's because he was still changing things as we were about to come in here this evening and stuff. But no, we just want to say we appreciate all of your fine counsel. And your gift does not say that you are the emeritus counsel, but you are the in perpetuity counsel.
Stay calm.